My name is irrelevant. This is an appeal for mercy for Julian Assange. It's no good at the West. I am now ashamed and totally ashamed of being British. I used to be very proud of being British. I'm proud of my own dignity as a British person, but I'm no longer proud of Britain. What it's done in the last few years, being a lackey of America, especially that bloke called Tony Blair, who went and followed the Bushes into attacking Iraq when there was no evidence whatsoever for weapons of mass destruction. It was obvious. And the fact that they could have just targeted that man and not the whole of the country in itself is deeply suspicious. I don't know what the Iraqi people had done to have it caused upon them a massive attack by the combined forces of the West. Now, I don't see how Julian Assange has done anything that is a greater sin than those people involved in the whole escapade into the Middle East. I thought Mr. Trump, I really respect Donald Trump, I genuinely do, and I thought I respected him before he became president. I was hoping he would become president because I could see, we know about Hillary Clinton. And I thought Mr. Trump was going to turn over a new leaf in American history, and he said he was going to make America great again. What is the greatness built upon? Military muscle, financial muscle, or mercy? What is the greatness about a country? Be able to beat other countries up, having them intimidated by what feels like Nazism or something? Is that what it is? As it feels like everyone now is intimidated by America, makes you feel great. Maybe it does. Maybe there's a thing about Americans and their psychology. They have to have everyone intimidated by them, which is actually a failing. Actually, surely friendship in the world is created by mercy and compassion. Surely we can no longer claim in the West to have this Western civilization when we do not have, while justice is meted out to Julian Assange, being the fact that he's been punished long enough. And also, we have to take into consideration that it's very important to understand that guy not only is being punished long enough, but the fact that he's addicted to the thing called the PC, the personal computers. And there's a lot of people are addicted to these things. And because it's that addiction to it will become something that he found he could, get notoriety over and use. And that's part of it. And maybe he's learned a lesson. But I'm suggesting to Mr. Trump and Theresa May, who I'm thoroughly ashamed of at the moment, that's a British Prime Minister. Well, what's British about her? There's nothing British about her at all. If that's what British is now, well, it's finished. If I say this as an Englishman, a Yorkshireman, I am ashamed, totally ashamed, and like many other people, utterly ashamed of what it's become. Submissive. Maybe he's breaking bail conditions or whatever, but nonetheless he's been a long time and he's been punished enough. Justice should fit the crime. And his punishment should fit the crime. He's been punished long enough, holed up in some house in the Ecuadorian consulate for 7 years is punishment enough for one man. 7 years in confinement is enough already. And that's far more than some terrorists get in this world, and far more than some murderers get. And many people who create mass murder get off scot-free. Actually pay to do so. What I'm suggesting, if anyone picks this up out there, is that Mr. Trump I may be getting sucked in. I thought Mr. Trump was going to come to some arrangement with Mr. Assange at the very beginning, and maybe Mr. Trump's been turned, and that will work against Mr. Trump. It will undermine Mr. Trump's own confidence in himself not to sort of give mercy to Julian Assange, because giving mercy is the greatest thing a leader can do. And all he can do, and I'm only suggestion, that you get onto the British government and then say, or the Queen herself, and offer a Queen's pardon to this guy, and then say he's sent back to Australia on a plane, and then he's allowed to be free in Australia, but he's not allowed to use the internet for a year. And it's just that might sound cynical on my part, or sort of more of a punishment, but it isn't really. It's to break Julian. It's a sort of, that's your punishment, if you like. But that's the worst punishment you can do to someone who's addicted. It's like taking alcohol from an alcoholic, or opium from an opium addict. Take away the addiction, and then Julian Assange can be free of all of that for a year. And after that, he might sort of cure him of his addiction of using the internet for whatever reason. And make sure, and also he shouldn't be in contact with the media and stuff like that. He should just go and have a life in Australia, living as an Aussie, doing whatever he likes. But nonetheless, he should just keep quiet and enjoy himself as a normal person would. It's supposed to be Easter now, when it's supposed to be about some guy called Jesus who sacrificed himself for us or whatever. And I'm not particularly a Christian myself, I'm more of a Taoist. Nonetheless, many the Western leaders in the world now will be sort of making, we're doing this to Assange, will be going to church and be seen at church this Easter, showing what good Christians they are. And that says enough, really. The Australian politicians haven't mentioned this in this election, and they're supposed to be Christians. They're Christian. They go to church not once, and that now they haven't said, "Bring Assange on." We want justice. Isn't enough. Maybe they don't understand what justice is, or Christianity is, or compassion is, because compassion means whatever he did, he's being punished enough. If we look at the punishments relative to the crime, as I've said. And I'm asking Mr. Trump, I think what Mr. Trump's done with China, negotiating with that, has just been brilliant. What he's done with North Korea is just, I take my hat off to that. He pulled troops out of the Middle East. He's done all that, and he's made a wonderful speech to the UN about US being itself and all that, and which I totally commend him. So now I hope, if he really wants to make America great, surely he should not be feared. He should be admired, not feared. Greatness is admired, not feared. We can fear big sharks in the water, or white pointers. We feared lions in the savannah. But is that how we get? Is that what sort of world we have, where we sort of fear the biggest, strongest, most dangerous animal, and that's human civilization? Compassion and justice is the hallmark of a great leader, as we all understand history. I mean, there are many different leaders, many powerful leaders. Greatest leaders have always been, like Alfred the Great of England was the greatest leader in my view in Western history, next to maybe religious leaders, but he was one of the great leaders because he had great compassion and great learning. And he had compassion for the Vikings and the Danes who were coming to England. He had compassion. He converted them to Christianity. And that began, in a way, the journey of Western civilization from then, in many ways. But I'm asking that if Mr. Trump picks this up, that compassion for Mr. Assange, get him on some sort of plane to Australia. So you're not allowed to use the internet for a year, which is it's a sort of it's punishment. But then it will break his addiction. He might become more philosophical about things, and therefore justice will have been served, and Mr. Trump will have achieved something that surely will make him look like a great leader. But to go along with the punishment of Assange makes him suddenly look like maybe he's not such a great, strong leader as he may want to appeal to the world to be. Mr. Trump, as I say, is a man from a Dutch heritage. The Dutch are the world leaders, as far as I can see, in sort of freedom of thought and expression. Surely you can appeal to your own heritage, your Dutch heritage at least, to say, well, what do I really stand for here? Hillary Clinton's regime? Have I joined Hillary Clinton now against Assange? And is that not a ploy to maybe help you defeat you at the next election? It's a sad day for the West when punishment can be meted out without compassion or justice, like it is to Assange. Let's restore confidence in the West that we are a place what leads the world in our freedoms. Now, from this day on, if Assange's continued punishment of him continues, we can no longer do that. We can no longer make that claim. I said I was proud to be British until I saw Assange dragged out like that. I can't see anything to be proud about anymore. It's a sad day, actually, for us all. I think the British people ought to go on a national strike about this, and the Australians, you can't. They're apathetic. The people in government here are they're arguing about climate change, and that's the most important thing to them. Is to argue about something they cannot do anything about. To avoid discussing things they ought to be doing something about. Anyway. Jesus rose up on the third day after he was strung up on a cross or crucified. Let's get Julian Assange out of this situation and have him free from, and show the mercy that Jesus was sacrificed for, Jesus stood for. Surely that's what makes us Christian. No longer can we criticize Islam. No longer can we criticize Russia or China or anyone else if this thing goes on. They continue to punish Assange the way they do. No longer. What can I say?